You have probably heard that first impressions form in less than a second, but in that short period of time, you literally cannot gather enough information to truly know a person. And yet, those first moments can determine whether someone likes you or decides to avoid you. The problem is that your brain fills in these gaps automatically. You start feeling certain about a stranger based on almost nothing. Without a single word being spoken, you may already believe they are trustworthy, confident, or even unlikable. And the most surprising part is that this feeling often seems completely right, even when it isn't. Let's go back in time to 1920 when Edward Thorndike published A Constant Error in Psychological Ratings. In an experiment, officers were supposed to rate their superiors in the army based on 4 categories: physical qualities, intelligence, leadership, and personal qualities such as their character. How do you think the results turned out? Were the character traits judged independently, or did perceptions of one trait influence the others? Their impressions of the superior were remarkably consistent across all categories. For example, if an officer rated a superior highly in terms of intelligence, they were also likely to give high ratings in other areas. Some of these relationships are understandable. Qualities such as intelligence and leadership often go hand in hand. However, the surprising finding was that higher ratings for intelligence were also associated with better ratings for physical appearance and other unrelated traits. In other words, characteristics that should have been evaluated independently seem to influence one another. A positive impression in one area spilled over into completely separate areas, creating an overall favorable judgment of the person. And no, this is not an exception. Countless studies have shown that a positive impression in one area can strongly influence how we perceive a person in other, completely unrelated areas. In other words, when we see someone as intelligent, attractive, or competent, we are more likely to assume they possess other positive qualities as well. Psychology refers to this cognitive bias as the halo effect. Our first impression in the first seconds of meeting someone is rarely influenced by their intelligence, since we cannot see this trait directly. But what we can see is their physical attractiveness. If we think someone is attractive, then we also assume that they are intelligent, trustworthy, and so on. A study conducted by Landy and Siegel in 1974 investigated whether physical attractiveness influences how people evaluate someone's performance. Male undergraduate students were asked to assess essays that were supposedly written by female authors. Therefore, the students were divided into 3 groups. One group was shown a photograph of an attractive female author. Another group was shown a photograph of a rather unattractive female author. And the third group was given no information about the author's appearance, control group at all. Overall, all participants were evaluating the same essays. The only difference was the photograph attached to the supposed author. A rational observer would expect identical essays to receive identical ratings, but that is not what happened. Can you guess which group gave the highest ratings? Exactly, the group that was shown an attractive photograph of the author. Participants rated the very same essay more favorably simply because they believed it had been written by an attractive person. A positive first impression spilled over into their evaluation of the author's abilities. The results were striking. For a well-written essay, the attractive author received an average rating of 6.7 out of 9, compared to 6.6 in the control group and 5.9 for the unattractive author. The effect became even more pronounced when the essay was poorly written. In that case, the attractive author received a rating of 5.2, the control group 4.7, and the unattractive author only 2.7. The essay itself never changed, only the photograph did. Yet participants judged the exact same work differently based solely on their impression of the author. This demonstrates the halo effect. A positive impression in one area, in this case physical attractiveness, influences how we evaluate completely unrelated qualities such as intelligence, competence, and here performance. The study also demonstrates the horn effect, which can be thought of as the opposite of the halo effect. While the halo effect causes a positive impression in one area to influence other judgments positively, the horn effect occurs when a negative impression spills over into unrelated areas. This can be seen in the ratings of the unattractive author. Participants not only judged the author's appearance negatively, but also evaluated the exact same essay more harshly. In other words, one negative characteristic influenced their perception of completely unrelated traits such as intelligence, competence, and here their writing ability. The attractive author benefited from a positive first impression, while the unattractive author suffered from a negative one. Both effects demonstrate the same underlying tendency. Instead of evaluating each characteristic independently, we often allow a single impression to shape our overall judgment of a person. Here, same essay, different rating, just because of a photo. Okay, but how can you benefit from the halo effect instead of suffering from the horn effect? Sadly, there is no hidden formula, but things that always help are appear well groomed, well dressed, have an upright body posture, keep strong eye contact, speak clear, and so on. But don't fake it and don't try to be perfect. Be authentic, be yourself, and love yourself. That should do most of it. Take care.